Welcome to People at Work. I'm Amanda Dundas. In today's hot labor market, employees have high expectations for their organizations in a variety of areas. There are steps organizations can take to create great cultures. Here to discuss this is Org Vitality's Dr. Victoria Hendrickson. Victoria, welcome.
Thanks, Amanda. Excited to be here.
So tell me, what do people want to see in their workplace culture?
Great question. And I think this is such a huge area. There's so many things you can say about what people are looking for in a workplace culture. A lot of companies really like to point out the differentiators about what makes their specific company culture unique. But I really want to start with the components that are most important. And a lot of those are the same and really enduring in any company, any industry. Work is such a huge part of our life. So it really has to be a place where we feel safe, we feel supported, and we feel like we can thrive. So to me, some of the most important aspects of a workplace culture are psychological and physical safety, respect, and feeling valued as a person. Now, as I say those, I think a lot of us will intuitively nod our heads and say, yes, of course, those are so obvious. At the same time, I think a lot of employees can think of a recent time when those factors were lacking and it was really disappointing to them as an employee. All of the employee perks in the world can't make up for not feeling psychologically safe at work or simply not feeling valued. One piece I really want to emphasize here, going beyond that, generally feeling safe at work, is the importance of feeling included and feeling like you really belong. Organizations have been talking about diversity for a long time, but I mean true inclusion. One metaphor that gets used a lot is that diversity means all people are invited to the dance, but inclusion means everybody gets to dance, and belonging means everybody had fun doing so or doing it the way they wanted. So employees are not just looking for representation, that's important, but they're looking for a culture that's truly inclusive and makes them feel like they belong there. More and more, I'm seeing employees valuing true inclusion and belonging no matter who they are. So whether or not an employee is part of an underrepresented group, it's critical that the organization values align with their own personal values. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm a white woman. Most central to my experience, I really need to see equity in terms of how folks of different identities are treated. But even though my race is not underrepresented, I really care about how my organization treats folks of underrepresented races, not because of my personal experience or, it matters to me on how I'm treated, but because it's important to my personal values and what I believe is right. So there will be other things that are important depending on industry, the work, or other things. But I think those aspects of safety, whether that's psychological or physical, feeling valued, feeling included, and belonging, those are really the foundational aspects that are important for any organization, anytime.
You mentioned safety, and that's something that has obviously become even more public lately. First, there is, of course, the pandemic, but also the social justice movement that gained traction in the wake of George Floyd's brutal murder. In the wake of these two seismic events, what are workers looking for today?
It's a great question. Kind of beyond those sort of really foundational pieces, I think there's an aspect of really trusting employees that's important. So the pandemic has shown how adaptable the most successful organizations and the most successful employees are. Employees have really been put through the ringer in terms of the kind of social unrest we've seen this year, as well as abrupt shifts to work from home, learning how to work remotely, returning back, homeschooling kids. People have really had to adapt and figure out how to do their work effectively as the world changes. And while it wasn't easy, I think many employees have done this very, very well. And what that's shown is that employees are adaptable. They can direct their work as needed to be successful, and we can really trust them. We don't need to see employees sitting in a seat from 8 to 5 to know that they're doing their work and they're a committed employee. I think employees appreciate a culture that allows autonomy in how they structure their work. simply put, let's trust employees to do their work in the way that they think is going to be most effective. Let's trust them to be the expert at their own job. One, they are the expert at their own job. And two, from a cultural perspective, this is really going to help employees feel trusted and feel valued.
Pandemic aside, what are some key elements of a good workplace culture?
Mm-hmm. I think some aspects of a workplace culture that are always going to be really relevant are career development. So every employee wants to do well and improve and thrive. And so whether it is development in their current role to do that job even better and have more impact, that's important. Whether it is to progress along their career. We have a lot of ambitious employees that want to always be looking for the next step and how they can get there. I think this can look different in terms of how it plays out in industries. So for example, nonprofit, education, some of those flatter organizations that have less moving up the hierarchy and more, how can I have impact in my role? That's, kind of one way we can help employees see what they're doing and how they're impacting the greater good in their role. For other kinds of organizations that do have more of a hierarchy, it can be about, how do I progress from my current role to an even more impactful role? And so helping employees see that trajectory and see how they can contribute to the organization over a long period of time is very important. Again, employees spend so much time at work. They want to see their impact and make sure that they are moving ahead. And so we owe it to them to make that clear. I think it's one thing if it takes time to make that impact. It's another thing if it's not clear. So make sure that that's clear of how employees can increase their impact or responsibility. Some other things that are really important are collaboration and innovation. Collaboration can look very different depending on the specific role or industry, but as humans, we're social creatures and our best work is often done together. And especially as we come out of the pandemic, where we may have more remote work or perhaps more hybrid work, where some people are in the office and some people are remote, we often have to be much more intentional about how that collaboration works. I'm a strong believer that, it can still work very well, even if we're not in the same room together. But we do need to be more process driven in terms of how do we hand off work? What are our expectations of our collaborators? Because we can't just walk by our coworker's desk and ask about a status. So, that's another aspect, just being very intentional about our collaboration. And with that, I would say innovation. Back to the point earlier about employees really want to provide an impact to their organization. I think innovation is one way that happens in terms of looking for new ways to do things, looking at new ways to support their customers. And I use the word customers very broadly. Their customers can be internal, external. They can be a kind of broad constituency. But how can we do better is all about innovation. And I think the best organizations are forward looking and innovation is a big part of that.
So, do you have any advice for organizations looking to improve their workplace culture?
It's going to be no surprise, coming from a survey consultant, that I think we need to listen to our employees. I think that employees who are doing the work day to day and living the culture day to day are going to be the best informed to tell us not only what kind of culture will be supportive of the organization's goals, but also how are we doing with our culture? What I see commonly is organizations have a wonderful stated culture. And what I mean by that is, if you go to the About Us page on a company's website where they list out the culture and that might include values, mission, who we want to be. Those things are all great. And they often, sound perfect. But day to day, how are we doing on those values? Where do we need to really focus and perhaps be a little more intentional so that we do live those values. And I think collaboration is, kind of a good example for that, in terms of, we say we want to collaborate, we want to make time to work with others, but often we're not as intentional about how we do that. So that could be an example of, okay, that's important to us, we agree. Now, how can we put into place some action plans so that we're living that day to day? Actually, innovation is another good example. Most organizations say that innovation and being on the forefront of their industry is one of the most important things to them, and it is. However, day to day, we often get kind of buried in the tasks that need to happen right now, and we don't always protect time or resources to work on future-oriented activities that we need for innovation. So even though innovation is stated as a key cultural value, day to day, there isn't a lot of reinforcement of innovation as one of the most important things. So I think surveys are a great way to listen to, one, are these the right values? And two, how are we doing on those values day to day?
That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing these ideas and for taking the time to speak with us today. If you have any questions or would like to speak with Dr. Hendrickson directly, you can contact us at orgvitality.com. Until next time, I'm Amanda Dundas, and this is People at Work.